The vicious alien laughter grew louder as Lyra shoved Eric's face into the space station floor, her reptilian claws digging into his scalp with cruel relish. But the scrawny human 12-year-old's mind raced with lines of code that would soon bring the arrogant Draconis to their knees and avenge his parents' deaths. It was the year 2153 aboard the Galactic Trade Hub, a sprawling metropolis in space where humanity coexisted with a multitude of extraterrestrial species. Eric Crawford was a brilliant young prodigy, his coding skills light years beyond his peers, but his genius was overshadowed by his small stature, making him a target for the technologically advanced yet brutish Draconis. Led by Lyra, the Draconis relentlessly tormented Eric, viewing humans as inferior playthings. Their cruelty knew no bounds, leading them to sabotage a critical life support system during one of their pranks, endangering thousands of lives. The station authorities suspected Draconis involvement, but lacked proof. Eric knew he was the only one who could stop them. This was no longer just about the bullying. It was personal. The accident that killed his parents years ago had the Draconis' fingerprints all over it. Driven by a thirst for justice and a need to protect the innocent, Eric began hacking into the Draconis systems, covertly gathering the evidence to expose their treachery. What he discovered chilled him to the bone. The sabotage was only the beginning. The Draconis were plotting a hostile takeover of the station, subjugating humanity under their scaly thumbs. Eric, barely into his teens, realized the future of every man, woman, and child aboard now rested on his narrow shoulders. He was the underestimated underdog, the overlooked hero. It would take every ounce of his genius, every line of code, to outsmart the Draconis and foil their sinister machinations. The stakes couldn't be higher. The clock was ticking. One boy, against a formidable alien adversary, held the key to humanity's survival in the cold void of space. He'd avenge his parents and prove the strength of the human spirit. Or die trying. As Eric's face pressed against the cold metal floor, his mind raced with purpose. The Draconis' cruelty only fueled his purpose to expose their treachery and avenge his parents. In the quiet moments between Lyra's taunts, Eric's fingers flew across his concealed datapad, diving deeper into the Draconis systems. Lines of incriminating code filled his screen, painting a chilling picture. Lyra's plan unfolded before his eyes, a meticulously plotted frame job to pin a catastrophic systems failure on the humans. The station's defenses would crumble, leaving it vulnerable to a Draconis invasion fleet. Eric's heart pounded as he uncovered the depths of their malice. But the young prodigy refused to let fear paralyze him. With a few clever keystrokes, he rerouted unsuspecting maintenance bots to patch the sabotaged systems. To any observer, it appeared to be routine repairs. Eric worked tirelessly, fortifying the station's vulnerabilities while maintaining his facade as a harmless child. However, Lyra's suspicions grew with each failed sabotage attempt. Her reptilian eyes narrowed as she summoned Zygon, her tech specialist. "Find the meddler," she hissed, her voice dripping with venom. "I want them brought to me." Zygon's claws danced across his terminal, tracking the digital trail left by the mysterious hacker. The signature was faint, but unmistakable. It led straight to Eric. In a dimly lit maintenance tunnel, Eric's heart raced as heavy footsteps approached. Zygon emerged from the shadows, flanked by a group of menacing Draconis enforcers. "Thought you could outsmart us, little human?" Zygon sneered, his forked tongue flicking with anticipation. Eric's eyes darted, searching for an escape. The tunnel was narrow, the Draconis blocking his path, but Eric had one advantage, his small, agile frame. As the enforcers lunged, Eric ducked and wove, slipping through their grasp. The tight confines worked in his favor, and he managed to elude capture by a hair's breadth. But his close call was a grim reality check. His cover was blown, and time was running out. In a bold strategy, Eric made the decision to hack directly into Lyra's personal ship. It was a daunting task, as her security was cutting edge. But Eric's skills were unparalleled, and with a combination of talent and sheer purpose, he slipped past her defenses undetected. What he found in her files chilled him to the bone. detailed invasion plans, lists of Draconis agents embedded in the station's ranks, and a chilling revelation. Proof of the Draconis' involvement in his parents' deaths. Eric's fingers trembled as he downloaded the incriminating evidence. Suddenly, alarms blared, piercing the silence. He'd been detected. Eric's heart pounded as he hastily covered his tracks, erasing any trace of his intrusion. He fled, his footsteps echoing in the empty corridors, just as Draconis soldiers stormed his family's quarters. The walls were closing in, and Eric knew he was out of options. The station authorities were compromised, Draconis spies lurking in their midst. They would never act on his evidence in time. Eric realized with a sinking feeling that the fate of the station rested on his scrawny shoulders alone. The schematics he'd stolen swam before his eyes, detailing every ship in the incoming Draconis fleet. A desperate plan took shape. A remote hack to seize control of the Armada, shut them down, and broadcast their treachery to the entire galaxy. It was audacious, borderline impossible. The odds were stacked against him, a lone boy against the might of an alien military. But Eric refused to back down. The lives of every human on the station hung in the balance, and he would not let the Draconis win, not after all they'd taken from him. With a deep breath and a fierce drive that belied his age, Eric set to work, his fingers flying across the keys. One boy, one chance, one shot to stop the invasion and make the alien bullies pay. Failure was not an option. Eric's fingers flew across the keys, his heart pounding as he initiated his desperate plan. The back doors he'd planted in Lyra's command ship were his lifeline, and he plunged through them into the Draconis fleet's core systems. Alarms blared on Lyra's flagship. She snarled, baring razor-sharp teeth. "What's happening?" "Intruder in the system, Commander," a subordinate yelped. "They're breaching our defenses." "Lock it down, now!" Lyra roared, slamming her fist on the control panel. But Eric was already in, worming his way through the navigation matrices of every Draconis warship. He planted his malicious code, overriding flight paths and weapons systems with brutal efficiency. Zygon's eyes narrowed as he recognized the coding style. "It's the human brat," he hissed. "Initiating wipe protocols." The cyber battle raged, Eric's lone terminal versus the might of the Draconis fleet. He ducked and weaved through their digital defenses, using his mastery of computing geometry to stay one step ahead. Auxiliary systems became his playground as he rerouted and obscured his digital footprint. Viruses poured from his fingertips, infecting Draconis systems left and right. Chaos erupted across the Draconis fleet. Ships lost control, thrusters firing randomly. Weapon systems went haywire, ion cannons turning on their own vessels. The space around them lit up with misfired munitions and explosions. "What's happening to our ships?" Lyra demanded, watching in horror as her invasion force tore itself apart. Zygon fought back hard, enacting scorched net protocols to burn Eric out of their systems. But the human boy was relentless, orchestrating cyberstrike after cyberstrike in a symphony of digital destruction. With a final, desperate move, Eric overloaded the warp engines on Lyra's flagship. The cascading failure rippled through the fleet, leaving 3/4 of the invasion force dead in space. Lyra's eyes widened as her ship plummeted towards the station. "Abandon ship!" she screeched, fleeing to the escape pods. With the last dregs of his access, Eric rerouted the flagship's vector, sending it careening harmlessly into the void. He slumped back, exhausted but victorious. The Draconis invasion had been stopped, but Eric knew this was only the beginning. Lyra was still out there, and the war was just the beginning. Eric's heart thundered in his chest as the galactic trade hub erupted in celebration. Screens across the station flashed news of his covert cyber attack, hailing the young human as their unexpected savior. But amid the cheers and congratulations, Eric felt only dread. He slipped through maintenance tunnels, avoiding the roving security teams dispatched to bring him into protective custody. Their intentions were good, but Eric knew better. He was a target now, and the station was no longer safe. In a dimly lit access junction, Eric tapped furiously at his datapad. His back doors into the Draconis systems wouldn't last long. He had to work fast. Come on, he muttered, sifting through terabytes of classified data. A ping. Eric's eyes widened as he uncovered files detailing Lyra's contingency bases. He cross-referenced them with his parents' recovered research, piecing together a chilling revelation. No way, Eric breathed, staring at the schematics of a colossal Draconis warship. It's real. The mythical dreadnought loomed on his screen, a relic of the Draconis' brutal past. If Lyra got her claws on that firepower, the station wouldn't stand a chance. Eric's fingers flew across the interface, but even his prodigious skills hit a wall. The dreadnought's location was locked behind impenetrable encryptions. Gotta get closer, Eric muttered. He formulated a plan, each step more daring than the last. Hours later, Eric crouched in the cramped cargo hold of a freighter bound for Draconis space. His hacked credentials fooled the security checkpoints, but his pulse raced with each scan. The Draconis command hub loomed ahead, a weaponized space station dripping with defenses. Eric's stolen shuttle slipped through a sensor blind spot, latching onto the hub's hull like a tick. Inside, Eric navigated a maze of corridors. He'd memorized the layout, but nothing prepared him for the oppressive alien architecture. At last, he reached the core database, a cavernous chamber thrumming with raw data. Eric plugged in, diving into the digital realm. Firewalls and virus traps assaulted his systems, but he danced through their defenses. At last, the dreadnought's coordinates revealed themselves, along with deactivation protocols for its ancient weapons. Alarms blared. Eric yanked his device free and sprinted for the exit. Mechanical shrieks filled the air as hunter-killer drones gave chase. He weaved through maintenance shafts, the drone's energy bolts sizzling past his head. With a final burst of speed, Eric flung himself into his shuttle. The drone's volleys rocked the small craft as he punched the launch sequence. He blasted away from the hub, leaving chaos in his wake. Victory surged through Eric's veins as he plotted a course for the dreadnought's coordinates. He could end this, once and for all. A priority transmission cut through his exhilaration. Eric's blood ran cold as Lyra's reptilian visage filled the view screen. You've been quite the nuisance, little human, Lyra hissed. The camera panned, revealing a group of terrified children, humans from the station. Surrender yourself, or watch as I execute these younglings one by one. Eric's hands shook as he stared at the hostages. He'd come so far, but now faced an impossible choice. The fate of the station, and these innocent lives, rested squarely on his shoulders. Eric's fingers hovered over the controls, sweat beading on his brow. The faces of the terrified children flashed on his screen, their eyes wide with fear. He couldn't abandon them, but surrendering meant certain death. His mind raced, calculating probabilities and potential outcomes at lightning speed. A plan crystallized. Eric's hands flew across the interface, setting coordinates for a desolate asteroid belt. He opened a channel to Lyra's ship. "I'll turn myself in," he said, his voice steady despite his pounding heart. "But I choose the location. These coordinates. Come alone with the children." Lyra's reptilian face filled the screen, her forked tongue flicking out. "Agreed, little human. But any tricks, and the children die." The rendezvous point loomed ahead, a field of tumbling rocks and space debris. Eric docked his shuttle, each motion precise and measured. The airlock hissed open. Lyra's larger ship approached, latching onto Eric's craft with a metallic clang. Eric stood in the corridor, hands raised in mock surrender. The Draconis leader stepped through, flanked by armed guards. Behind her, the human children huddled together, eyes darting fearfully. "Weapons down," Eric said calmly. "Let the children board my shuttle first." Lyra sneered. "You're in no position to make demands, boy." Suddenly, Zygon burst through the airlock, his eyes wild. "It's a trap," he shouted. "His biosignature is masked." Chaos erupted. Laser fire scorched the walls as Eric dove for cover. He slapped a button on his wrist, activating hidden defense systems in his shuttle. Turrets sprang to life, forcing Lyra's forces back. Eric sprinted down a maintenance shaft, the sound of pursuit close behind. He emerged in a cavern deep within an asteroid, the walls glittering with mineral deposits. His fingers flew across his datapad, hacking into the Draconis defense grid. Automated turrets swiveled, unleashing a barrage against Lyra's soldiers. Eric ducked and weaved through the labyrinth of tunnels, staying one step ahead of his pursuers. A clawed hand grabbed his ankle, yanking him off his feet. Zygon loomed over him, the captured children cowering behind the Draconis officer. "End of the line, human," Zygon snarled, raising his weapon. Eric's mind raced. In a flash of inspiration, he activated a subroutine he'd been developing, an experimental hack that manipulated matter at the quantum level. Lines of code streamed from Eric's device, penetrating Zygon's exo-armor. The Draconis officer's eyes widened in shock as his body began to glow, then disintegrate. "Run!" Eric shouted to the children. They fled as Zygon's form dissolved into nothingness, leaving only a pile of ash. Eric sprinted through the asteroid complex, the children close behind. Lyra's voice echoed through the tunnels, full of rage. Her remaining guards converged on their position. Thinking quickly, Eric accessed the asteroid's environmental controls. With a few keystrokes, he triggered a chain reaction of explosive decompressions. Chunks of rock tore away, exposing sections to the vacuum of space. One by one, Lyra's soldiers were sucked into the void, their screams cut short as the airless expanse claimed them. Soon, only Lyra remained, cornered and seething with hatred. "It's over, Lyra," Eric said, standing tall despite his exhaustion. The Draconis leader's eyes narrowed. "If I fall, I'm taking you with me." She raised a detonator, her claw poised to trigger her flagship's reactors. Eric didn't hesitate. He unleashed his final weapon, a digital payload containing the essence of his parents, recompiled into a sentient virus. Lyra screamed as the virus penetrated her neural implants. Her eyes rolled back, body convulsing as Eric's parents exacted their vengeance. With trembling hands, Eric guided Lyra's catatonic form to her ship. He set the coordinates, sending the vessel hurtling into deep space, far from populated systems. Exhausted and shell-shocked, Eric collapsed into the pilot's seat of his shuttle. The rescued children gathered around him, their savior and protector. As they approached the galactic trade hub, Eric stared out at the stars. He had won, but at what cost? The weight of his actions, the lives he'd taken, pressed down on his young shoulders. The station came into view, a bastion of safety in the cosmic night. But for Eric, the real battle was just beginning. The fight against the darkness that now lurked within his own mind.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel. And for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.